How you guys doing? I'm Nicole Scott, and this is...
Don Dahlman, hi Nicole.
Hey. So today we're here at the MQ Summit in Ingolstadt, and it's before everything starts.
Yeah, and it's really amazing what they build up here for the small, not small conference. I mean, we have Steve Wozniak here, we have CartoGo, so we have really big names here, and we are talking a lot about the future of mobility.
Yeah, and Ron Garan is tomorrow, and he's spent 170 days, 23 hours, and 54 minutes in space. This guy has a different concept of mobility than we do, I think.
Different view of it, I think so too.
So before we dive into the MQ Summit, because you have a panel, I'm moderating, but what we really want to chat about today is kind of what's going on with mobility in general.
It's a lot. I mean, Nicole, I mean, like everybody who's following this topic, it's amazing what's going on. I mean, every week is something new, and you have a new car, you have news about autonomous driving, and just today we had the news that the EU finally approved the merger or joint venture between CartoGo and DriveNow, which are, if you don't know them, the biggest car sharer in the world, free-floating car sharer. It's CartoGo, it's from Mercedes. DriveNow, it's from BMW, and they throw together all the stuff that they do in terms of digital work and digital companies. So it's not also all together, but it's mainly, I mean, they have some small companies also working together, but it's mainly CartoGo and DriveNow, which is really huge because I think they're around in 31 cities, and they have like, I think alone in Berlin they have like 5,000 cars running around, and it's one of the most successful car sharing operations that you can find, and of course now the biggest in the world. So this is really huge news.
So now, what were the conditions from the EU for allowing this merger to happen? Because it's been in the works for quite some time now.
It's been in the works for like, there was like the first rumors were like 2 years ago, so when we heard there was something going on, and since a year it was finally clear that they're doing it, and when you asked the people at Daimler or BMW, no, we never heard of it. But yeah, it was clear that they want to do it. Well, they had some conditions, of course, because it's a kind of monopoly that they have. I mean, Volkswagen is coming into Berlin with their own car sharing service, e-car sharing service, only electric cars.
Only electric, yeah.
In 2019. But of course, if you have like so many cars and you have like a grown customer base, it's hard for a new company to get in. So what they asked them is so the cities have to give them, the new companies, better conditions or slightly better conditions, and they have to open up the APIs for everybody else. Which sounds a bit like, do I really want to share my data with like new companies?
So many new companies.
Yeah, do I really want to do that? But I think in the end it's a win-win situation. I mean, the data is out there anyway. It's just a matter of time how fast you can get it. People are moving always the same way, and it's not rocket science to find that out. So in the end, of course, new companies will come in that will also give some pressure on the market in terms of prices or in terms of pricing, and but I think also CartoGo and DriveNow or the new company will have a new name, will benefit from it because they also can get some data. So in the end, it's like a win-win situation for everybody.
And to be honest with you, Google Maps just sent me an email literally yesterday saying that I'm like 300,000 miles away from my walk to Mars, and how many cities I've visited in like this month and where I've been. And I gave my location data to Google years ago. Right? I mean, like, if we're being real about it, it's just a new company now who's really focused, really focused on our mobility that actually has access to it. Yeah. So it's just like we're just picking a different master, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, location data is not that much sensitive in a way. I mean, most of it is anonymous anyway, and I never had a problem sharing my location data with Google. I always find it kind of funny when I get those kind of mails and telling me how many hours I'm sitting in a plane or things that move around or whatever. And especially here in Europe, you have these very harsh and very hard laws and kind of protecting your privacy. And so I think we're maybe a bit more safer than maybe in other parts of the world, because it's harder to use the data also for certain stuff. And I think you are benefiting from it in the end. Yeah. It's helping yourself, and it's making, and they can offer you better services for it. So I'm happy to share some of my data, not everything, but some, especially location data, and share it with companies who use it to make a better service.
So now, one of the interesting things for me is that like this type of car sharing in Germany is the most prevalent way that we participate in the ride-sharing economy because Uber and Lyft aren't there,
Aren't allowed.
or Didi. Like there's no actual
Yeah,
ride
if
sharing.
if a viewer is from Asia or from the States and never been to Europe, it's like okay, where I mean I know a lot of people coming to Berlin as tourists, and the first thing sometimes they ask, let's get an Uber, and I always say.
It's not the same. It's not the same, guys.
No. We don't have the normal Uber here in Berlin, and the same goes for people coming from Asia, from China, say a Didi or whatever, or an Ola. And no, we don't have that because laws forbid those companies to work here. It's a very complicated situation. They want to change it. Oh, they announced it that they may going to change it in the next 1 or 2 years, but it's forbidden here. So what you have is cabs, just normal cabs.
Normal,
Just normal,
expensive,
very
expensive
cabs.
taxis.
Exactly. You have cabs and that's it.
So expensive.
Yeah.
So when you call an Uber, a normal taxi driver comes, and it's like a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, or like it's not just a normal taxi. It's it's often a fancy car as well.
Yeah, Uber has like make contracts with some contractors, and they provide the cars. So you pay a bit less, like a tiny amount, really, like maybe 5% less than if you use a normal cab. But it's still highly. I mean, compare it. I don't know the prices in New York, for example, at the moment, but you pay around €2 per kilometer. That's around $2.20, $2.30 per kilometer that you have to pay.
So part of what Germany's missing out on, because I just spent a few weeks in LA, and I was addicted to Uber Express Pool. I've never seen this before, right? So Uber Express Pool is like Uber Pool. So you get in with a bunch of strangers, but Express means that it will drop you near your destination, right? So it's optimizing the route. So it's not door to door, right?
Okay.
But it's cheap. Like it's cheap.
How much you pay, for example, for like a 10 minutes?
Oh,
or 15
10
minute ride?
minutes. Like my lowest Uber Express pool might have been like under $3, like $2.61 to spend like 10 minutes in a car, right? Okay, but here's the gorgeous part. There's an Instagram that if you guys are on there, you should follow. It's called Overheard in LA. And this is a real thing. Like when you listen to people talk in LA, their conversations are out of control. It's like I was in this, and I love it. Like I love Uber Express Pool because you get the people who are the cheapest and also say the most outrageous things. So there was a lady talking to her other friend in the Express, and it was uncomfortable because I was already in the back seat and they had to take the front and the back, right? So they were talking across the car.
Yeah.
It's awkward, right?
Yeah.
And so the lady in the front goes to the lady in the back. Actually, my daughter is going to be taking a gap year, even though she got into blah, blah, blah film school to become an Instagram influencer. And like my head nearly exploded. Like it just about exploded. But these like cultural moments that I found this like high level of interactivity with, like in this Express Pool, is something that is like missing in Europe.
Yeah, no,
Yeah?
we have public transport here. We have no. I mean, to be honest, we really do have that, and it's very cheap compared to what you find somewhere else in the world. So public transport is these kind of. You get a lot of awkward situations when you use public, but everybody knows that's why public transport is maybe not the best solution for everyone, or people who are a little bit anxious about those standing close in the summer.
Getting squashed into a corner.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare what you have like in China or in US, example for or kind of ways to transport yourself to other places like UberX, like Lyft, like Didi, etc. Europe, especially Germany, is lacking a bit behind because the laws are not allowing Uber to do their business here at the moment. But we're keeping up. And the other thing is that public transport, especially in the bigger cities, is really good and it's really cheap. And you can buy a day ticket for like €7 and you can use it how much you want, or weekly tickets for like 20 or 25. So it's really cheap, and it's like in Berlin, it's working 24/7.
Right.
So they pause some lines, but most of them, if they pause a line, you get a bus. So it's it's perfect.
Yeah, and the reality is that Los Angeles is a bit of an anomaly because they actively said we do not want public transportation.
Weird.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, but I mean, what happening there, which is also interesting in terms of future of transportation, is that companies like Uber taking over public transport, and it's a kind of privatization of public transportation. So I'm not sure if this is a good thing, because you never know what happens with the economy and with companies, and if they are in a slump, they raise the prices, and suddenly you have to pay for a daily travel that you do, daily ticket, you have like double or whatever. And that can't happen with public transport because they are bound to an amount of money that they can make. Or ticket prices are like, you can't raise them like you want to. And if you privatize public transport, it's gonna be very costly in the end for your city and also for your transportation costs in whole. So I would be very, very careful about it. That's why, I mean, Europe sometimes lags behind, but they're also thinking a bit ahead and thinking, okay, if we allow private companies taking over public transport, we may run in problems into the future. And what is happening when those companies go bankrupt?
Right.
I mean, we had it with the ride-sharing bikes.
Yeah.
How many bikes were suddenly on? There were millions of bikes on the market, and then I don't know. I think Ofo it was who went bankrupt like this.
And then who's left cleaning up their bikes all over the street, right? And it's actually amazing when you see the photos from China about like the ride-sharing graveyards, right? That just exist. And it's interesting that the Chinese companies are the most aggressive coming into Europe with their bike sharing, and it's funny to me how Germans complain about the bikes over here because it's funny. They want the bikes lighter. These bikes are too heavy, and I'm like, well, if the bikes are too light, they're going to break, right? And
Exactly,
and to me personally, because my go-to is riding a bicycle in cities. Like it's my absolute number one. Like in Taipei for 9 years, I primarily used a bike. So this is like my number one. And in Asia, the bikes tend to be heavier because you want to be able to go over roads that are like not stable. But in Europe, you don't think like that. So it's actually it's quite interesting the different
It
dynamics.
depends a bit on where you live in what kind of city. If you want to have a light bike if you live like in Stuttgart, for example, because there's a lot of hills and it's very steep. It's like San Francisco in a way. If you live in Berlin, that's like flat. That's like pancakes. It doesn't care. I don't know if it's like lightness. I think it's about also pricing. So people don't want to spend a lot of money on this kind of transportation because you do all the work. So you have to do all the work on a bike. I think those bikes from Lime, these e-bikes, are doing very good.
They're
I see
pretty
them.
good as well, yeah.
I see them very often. I used them once, and it was pretty good because you don't have to do anything on an e-bike. But I think what I'm hearing at the moment also from investors and other people is. Two things: micro-mobility, everything that is these e-scooters. Ford just invested, I think it was a news from today, Ford just invested 200 million into Spin, one company. And Alphabet invested also in it, the Google parent company, and also another one. So they are investing a lot there's like going into the billions now market for micro mobility, these kind of 1 kilometer, $200 e-scooters thing. And another thing is the electric Vespas, if you want to call it this way. They are doing really, really good because they are that's when you start to record somebody when everybody's rehearsing. These e-Vespers, these electric Vespers are doing really good. I use, for example, Coupe in Berlin. It's from a company from Bosch. And everybody's using Chinese e-scooters, but it's really working well. I pay €3 for half an hour, and it's quick. It's easy to get. They're around the corner everywhere, and it's my perfect solution for transportation for myself in Berlin.
So what's really interesting about these kind of like e-scooters that are kind of coming, like the the tiny ones, like not the actual Vespas. In Oakland, these birds have recently come out in California. And do you know what I found really interesting is that you get a credit for charging them in your home, right? But they haven't worked out the kinks for people just taking them into their houses and using them as their personal scooter. Right, and then the other problem is that the snatch and grabs have gone up 800%. Right, which I didn't even realize would be like that crime would increase because people could suddenly zoom away. It's completely fascinating. But while you were talking, we heard the overhead speaker because we are here at the MQ Summit, the MQ Innovation Summit. You have a panel this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, what's your panel on?
We are talking about sustainability, smart sustainability. We have Scott, he's also from Audi, works in China. He will tell us what's going on in China because I think this is one of the most interesting markets, of course, obviously, what's going on there. And we have Lisa from Audi Business Innovation from Munich, and she will talk about the ideas Audi has in terms of how they develop new ideas for business. It's a bit like funny. I talked to her, we had a short rehearsal some minutes ago, and I talked to her and said, I mean, in a way, you are developing ideas to get rid of cars. Yeah. So in a way, you try to destroy the business model of the company you're working for. You said, yeah, that's right in terms, but I mean, we know what's going to happen anyway. Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen anyway. So the business model, like selling cars and forget about it and sell new cars, it's not going to work for the rest of our life or the rest of the life of a company. If you don't use new ideas and new business innovations, and if you solely put your fortune on I'm selling cars, then I think you're done in 10 years. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And there's your panel, there's 2 others, and then there's actually 12 workshops that are happening throughout the day. One of the things that I actually enjoyed most from attending last year was just how you get to engage with the other participants. Yeah. And then, of course, we have like Ron Guerin, Steve Wozniak, and Cory Doctorow, who I have a huge crush on intellectually. Yeah. his sci-fi meets real world criticism is just right up my alley for keeping me interested in what's going on. So we will spare our camera guy's shoulder. Yeah. He's like, guys, this is a lot of chatting.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, and so come back again, because Don and I are going to make an effort to do more of these little chats about what's going on with mobility. We're going to be aiming for every 2 weeks, because I'm in Germany for the next couple weeks.
Which is a rare situation.
Which is a rare situation, but hopefully next year more.
Somewhere for 2 weeks. It's rare.
It's true. I do love seeing the world.
Yeah, good to see you, and see you in 14 days.
Yeah.
Bye.